Before we even open the box, here's the real question. Is Ghost of Yotei worth playing, and is the collector's edition worth the price? Quick answer, I think the game is generally worth it, but the collector's edition disappointed me for one major reason. Alright, let's roll the unboxing and find out.
A few moments later. Much later.
Okay, now that you've seen what's in the box, here's my quick breakdown. First impressions. The collector's edition arrives properly packaged. It feels premium in the way you'd expect from something that's meant to be displayed, not just opened once and forgotten. And the main attraction is exactly what you want it to be. The Ghost of Yotei mask replica. This is the centerpiece. It's the thing you'll put on a shelf or on a desk, and it instantly communicates that this is a collector's item. It also comes with a stand, so you're not improvising some awkward setup just to display it. That part I genuinely like. But then we hit the biggest issue, and I need to say this clearly because it changed my entire opinion of the value of this edition. There's no physical disc in this collector's edition. I didn't assume that going in, so I actually looked for it. I had that moment where you're thinking maybe it's hidden under something, or maybe it has some kind of hidden compartment. Maybe there's a steel case tucked in the bottom of the box, that type of thing. And then it hits you. No steel case, no disc. In my box, the game is digital only. And for me, that's a hard miss for something that's marketed as a collector's product. If I'm buying that premium box, I want that premium physical presentation to come along with it. The case, the disc, the shelf piece that feels complete alongside the extras that we have in the box. So even though the mask is cool, that missing physical game is the reason I'm saying this up front. If I knew that before ordering, I would not have bought this edition. Now, aside from the mask, you do get a solid set of physical extras. You've got the in-game sword tsuba with its own stand, which is a really nice touch for display. You've got Atsu's sash with the names of the main targets, the Yōtei Six, written on it, which fits the revenge theme. There's also a pouch with metal coins tied to an in-game minigame, which I never played, plus a 3D pop-up paper display with the tree and wolf piece, and some art cards that are included in the box. Digitally, it comes with some bonus items as well, such as the snake armor, a custom horse and saddle and die for it, a cosmetic sword kit, a charm, and early unlocks for travelers maps. And to be clear, most of these are purely cosmetic, aside from the travelers maps. So in one line, I would say my verdict would be the following. The mask is all great, it's a great display piece. The extras are nice, but the lack of a physical disc and steel case makes this feel incomplete. And at this price point, that's not acceptable for me. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual game, because the game itself is a very different conversation, and in some ways, I actually enjoyed parts of it more than Tsushima. Alright, the game. Ghost of Yotei is not Ghost of Tsushima 2, in the way some people expected. It's a follow-up in spirit, but it's doing something different right from the start. This time, you're not playing a samurai being forced to break his own code. You're following Atsu, and the story puts you in a very different headspace. This is a revenge-driven protagonist in a lawless frontier, set in Esso, modern-day Hokkaido, where the rules feel looser and the land feels rougher, and the tone leans more towards survival and vengeance than honor and tradition. Atsu's family is killed, she survives, and that single event becomes the spine of the entire story, hunting down the people responsible one by one. Those targets are the Yōtei Six, a Ronin group tied directly to what happened to her family. And as you progress, you're not just chasing bosses, you're building a reputation. People start seeing Atsu as something more than a person. You get that Onryo vibe, the wandering demon of the land, and the game reflects it by escalating the response to your actions. In my playthrough, I started seeing bounties placed on you as your reputation grows, and it gives the story a nice sense of momentum, like the more you take from them, the more the world starts reacting to you. Tsushima's core conflict is very philosophical. A samurai who believes in honor is forced to adapt into shinobi tactics because the enemy is stronger and the island is burning. It's about compromise, it's about the cost of winning, it's about identity. Yotei is more direct. Atsu is already the kind of fighter who can do stealth, assassination, and dirty tactics from the start, because she's learned to survive that way. So the tension isn't will she break the code? The tension is will revenge actually consume her? And the game shows that in small moments, like when she prioritizes revenge over saving people, or when you can feel that tunnel vision taking over. So, yeah, it's less meaningful in the classic samurai moral conflict sense, but it isn't soulless. It's just a different type of story. More primal, less poetic, more personal, I would say. Now, where Yotei really impressed me is the combat, because the combat in Ghost of Yotei feels more satisfying than Tsushima. And the reason is weapon diversity. Tsushima's strength was stance-based sword combat with excellent presentation. Yotei builds on that feeling, but expands the sandbox so fights feel less like one sword system with variations, and more like a full toolkit. As you get deeper into the game, weapons start to feel like answers, not just different animations, but different purposes. Certain weapons feel better against certain enemy types, so you're encouraged to adapt, not just repeat the same pattern. You've got katana combat as the baseline, but you also have options like spear, a kusarigama, and a range of ranged weapons, bows, and more. That let you control fights in different ways depending on the situation. And that's where the game becomes fluid. Instead of doing the same approach for every encounter, you start thinking, what am I fighting? What's the space like? Do I want the duel clean, or do I want to thin them out? Do I want to go loud, or do I want to go silent? And because Atsu's identity fits that flexibility, it all feels natural. You're not role-playing a samurai forced into dishonor, you're role-playing a hunter who will use whatever works. Now, beyond combat, the other thing that makes these Ghost games special is the exploration and duels. Because from my time with it, the game gets noticeably better when you slow down, explore, and do the side content instead of rushing the main targets. So next, let's talk about exploration, duels, and why rushing the Yōtei Six is the fastest way to miss what the game does best. One thing Ghost of Tsushima proved is that a good open world isn't just about map size. It's about rhythm. It's about giving you a reason to slow down, take in the environment, and let the world breathe between intense moments. Ghost of Yotei continues that philosophy, and it's a big reason the world feels rewarding instead of just being a backdrop. Because if you treat it like a checklist game, if you sprint from main objective to main objective and just hunt the Yōtei Six as fast as possible, you'll still have fun, but you're going to miss what makes it special. The best way to play Ghost of Yotei is to explore. The game constantly places little moments in front of you, small side quests, optional fights, encounters that turn into mini-stories, and combat opportunities that let you test the weapon variety we just talked about. And the payoff is that the world feels more alive when you engage with it. Now, the standout content in these Ghost games is the duels. The duels are where the cinematic feel hits its peak. The camera pulls you into the moment, the music and the atmosphere do that quiet build-up, and suddenly you're not just fighting another enemy, you're in a scene, and Ghost of Yotei has a lot of energy. Optional duels, side duels, story duels, the kind of fights that break up the open world flow and remind you why this franchise has such a strong identity. Even if you don't remember every side quest, you tend to remember the duels. You remember the vibe, the tension, and the setting. And this is where weapon diversity matters again, because even if the duel system pushes you toward cleaner swordplay, the overall combat sandbox still influences how you approach the world in between those duels. It's not just fight, loot, repeat. It's build your toolkit, learn the enemies, and then test yourself in cinematic moments. That's why my recommendation is simple. If you buy this game, don't rush it. Because the side content isn't just filler. It's the part of the game that makes the world feel like a journey instead of a revenge checklist. Now, we need to tie this back into the story tone because the comparison to Tsushima is important. And it's exactly what people will search for. Is Ghost of Yotei better than Tsushima? And the honest answer is, in some ways, yes. In some other ways, no. Because they're trying to do different things. They're not the same type of story. Ghost of Tsushima is built around a central identity crisis. A samurai who believes in honor is pushed into using tactics he considers dishonorable because the enemy is stronger and the situation is desperate. The story works because you can feel that internal conflict in everything that you do. Ghost of Yotei is built around something simpler, but still powerful, which is revenge. Atsu isn't falling from honor into shinobi tactics, she already starts capable of stealth, assassination, and pragmatic violence. So the story tension isn't will she break the code, it's more like how far is she willing to go and what does it cost her. That's why Tsushima tends to feel more meaningful on paper. It's about ideology and legacy and identity. Yotei feels more personal, more raw, and more driven by momentum. You're not debating morality every moment, you're watching a person get consumed by a mission. And the game does a solid job showing that it isn't just a simple revenge checklist. There are moments where Atsu prioritizes revenge over helping people, and that's where the story shows its teeth. It makes the Unreal reputation feel more than an aesthetic. It feels more like a reflection of what she's becoming. So if you're coming from Tsushima and expecting the same kind of philosophical weight, you might feel like Yotei's lighter. But if you accept that it's a different tone, a frontier revenge story in a lawless land, it still has soul. It just expresses it differently. And I think that's why the combat improvements land so well, because Atsu's story and Atsu's toolkit match. The weapon variety, the mercenary and assassin background, the hunt for Yōtei Six, it all fits together. The gameplay isn't fighting the narrative identity the way Tsushima's gameplay sometimes intentionally did, so the clean comparison is this. Tsushima is about a man becoming something he never wanted to be. Yotei is about a woman choosing revenge and risking becoming something she can't come back from. Different flavors, both valid, and whether you prefer one over the other comes down to what you think or want from the story. Now, let's land the final verdict for the game and for the collector's edition separately, so you know what exactly to do. So here's my final verdict on Ghost of Yotei. As a game, I genuinely recommend it. The combat feels more satisfying and more fluid than Tsushima, and the weapon diversity adds a layer that makes encounters feel less repetitive over time. The duels still bring that cinematic energy, and the open world rewards exploration in a way that feels worth your time. If you play the right way, exploring, doing side quests, taking optional fights, it becomes much more richer experience than if you rush straight through the Yōtei Six. Where it doesn't beat Tsushima for me is the story meaning. Tsushima's honor versus necessity theme is stronger and more memorable as a character journey. Yotei's story is simpler, revenge-driven, but it still works because it leans into the idea that Atsu is becoming feared, hunted, and potentially consumed by what she's doing. So my advice is simple. If you love Tsushima and you want more of that world with stronger combat variety, Ghost of Yotei is worth playing. Just don't expect the same type of story. It's a different tone, a different protagonist, and a different core theme. Now, the collector's edition, I'm going to be blunt. I like the mask. It's the one piece that makes sense as a collector's display item, and it looks great on the stand. But the lack of a physical disc and steel case makes this edition feel incomplete to me. At a collector's price point, I want the full physical package. And not having it turns this into something I wouldn't recommend unless you already know you're fine with a digital-only approach.